evening. It appears that Ayatollah Mustafa Khamenei, Iran's new supreme leader, is gay. This comes after his internet search history was leaked to the press, which shows he was Googling things like how to come out of the closet in Iran without being thrown off a roof, or how to watch Brokeback Mountain in Iran without getting caught by my father's Iranian Revolutionary Guard, or even things like, is that cute American gay guy Pete Buttigieg single? Anyway, oil prices...
I gotta stop it there. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back and good morning to you. I hope you all are ready for a good show. We got some major developments that are coming out as we speak. Joe Kent, Trump's National Counterterrorism Center director, appointed by Trump last year, just quit. He just resigned in a very, very public way, releasing his resignation letter on X. And what he said is probably going to shock a lot of you guys. Additionally, we have new airstrikes over inside of Iran. New airstrikes. Some of them are a very big deal, taking out huge members within the regime. The guy that was running the country while Khamenei was in the hospital, yeah, he's dead now, along with the besieged force commander and several others. We're going to talk about that. And what is more, I talked to you guys about it last night. I said that there was signs that it looked like the insurgency was beginning to spark on the ground over inside of Iran. New video came out this morning from an airstrike over inside of Tehran that absolutely has hints that goes directly into a freaking ambush. At least that's what I feel. I think that there's plenty of signs on the ground, and you guys are probably going to feel the same way after I point everything out to you. First, let's go ahead and get this up on your screen so that you guys can see it and take a look at it. This is the resignation letter that was just released by Joe Kent over on X. It's a little freaking shocking, if like I might. He says, President Trump, after much reflection, I've decided to resign from my position as director of the National Counterterrorism Center, effective today. I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. Support the values of the foreign policies that you campaigned on in 2016, 20, and 24, which you enacted in your first term. Until June of 25, you understood that the wars in the Middle East were a trap that robbed America of the precious lives of our patriots and depleted the wealth and prosperity of our nation. In your first administration, you understood better than any modern president how to decisively apply military power without getting us drawn into never-ending wars. You demonstrated this by killing Soleimani and defeating ISIS. Early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your American First platform and sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States and that should you strike now, there was a clear path to a swift victory. This was a lie, and is the same tactic that the Israelis used to draw us into a disastrous Iraq war that cost our nation the lives of thousands of our best men and women. We cannot make this mistake again. As a veteran who deployed to combat 11 times, and as a Gold Star husband who lost my beloved wife Shannon in a war manufactured by Israel, I cannot support sending the next generation of off to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people, nor justifies the cost of American lives. I pray that you will reflect upon what we are doing in Iran and who we are doing it for. The time for bold action is now. You can reverse course and chart a new path for our nation, or you can allow us to flip further toward decline and chaos. You hold the cards. In honor, it was an honor to serve in your administration and to serve our great nation. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a statement by Joe Kent. Now, I'm going to state this plainly. I do not agree with 90% of the things that man wrote in his letter. I don't think it was Israel that ended up shoving us into the war with Iraq. There's plenty of evidence that says they told us not to, and I understand that there's evidence that told us that they did. I do not agree that they're not a threat to the United States of America, nor do I believe that several of these other things that ended up happening that he ended up writing in there. But here's my thing about it. Joe earned his right to his opinion, and he's allowed to have it, just like I'm allowed to have mine. And so I respect him for that very reason. And I think he's done plenty for the United States of America and earned the right to have that opinion. So I had no problem sending him a message this morning. actually supporting him in his decision, because at least he's got the balls to be public about what it is he believes. He didn't go out and do a million different podcasts. He didn't like sit there and smear a bunch of, crap over on, Twitter. Maybe he will now. I don't think he will, but maybe he'll be on Tucker Carlson next. I have no idea. But he wrote a very clear and concise letter. And I mean, yeah. As much as I don't like what he said, I'm not going to not share it with you. I'm not going to not put it on the show. I'm going to plainly tell you that I completely and totally disagree with, his statements. With a lot of his statements So, anywho, here we go. These are the commanders that ended up getting eliminated. We have the commander of the besieged forces that was killed. And we also have this pile of garbage. This is an even bigger deal. This is Ali Larijani. I believe he actually went into Iran from Iraq in 1967 and took part in all the terror activities to make the regime what it is today. He has been serving as the Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council. He was the Iranian regime's defective leader ever since the old Ayatollah Khomeini got killed just a couple weeks ago. Of course, the new elected Ayatollah, well, he is also wounded and sitting in a hospital. And yesterday I proposed a question, who's running the show? Looks like it was him. He was running the show, and he got taken out in an airstrike. Now, more and more information has came out about this. I'm going to let you guys listen to a quick news clip. Hold on. That's not the one I wanted to play. I wanted to play this one. Here we go.
Johnny is dead. He was killed in a strike overnight, according to Israel's defense minister. This was probably the most significant strike, you could describe it, in the past week and a half, as the Israelis and the Americans are going after the structure of Iran's regime. Larijani was largely considered the de facto leader in the aftermath of the killing of Iran's former supreme leader, and uncertain questions about Mojtaba Khamenei, the man who was elected to be the next supreme leader. Larijani was serving as the secretary to Iran's Supreme National Security Council. I can also report overnight the Israelis, in a separate strike, killed the top commander of Iran's besieged forces. This is a wing of the IRGC. His name is Ghulam Reza Soleimani, and he was responsible for commanding the crackdown on protesters earlier this year across Iran. An official tells me this morning that over a dozen official Ali Larijani.
So there's that statement right there that ends up coming out from Trey Yinks. Now, the new information that we ended up getting out of there was that all of these men were actually gathered in a tent over near Shiraz. I'm sorry, not Shiraz. Maybe it was Shiraz, down there in that general vicinity. They had actually gathered up in a tent, and they thought that they were going to be safe. This is the information that's now coming out, and that is when that airstrike ended up occurring, that they took them out. Now, the interesting part about that is it wasn't just those two men that ended up getting killed. There's over a dozen, reportedly, that were also in that tent with them for some sort of a freaking retaliation meeting and something that they plan on doing. So it wasn't that we just took out those two. We took out like a lot of their commanding staff, and we're going to figure out exactly how many of their commanding staff ended up getting taken out. It's going to come out like over the course of the day. But the interesting part is the amount of intel that's on the ground. Fox McCloud, I don't know what you wrote, but 502 saw fit to delete your comment, man. I appreciate the donation though. Hawkeye believes that Joe Kent's based. And for all the mods, man, if I would appreciate it, because I might actually bring them in on for an interview. I know a lot of you guys don't like what he has to say, but he does have a buttload of experience. The man's got more experience than I do. And he certainly has more on the ground experience inside of Syria. And so those are things that I would be interested in hearing from him. He lost his wife in that fight. He's lost a lot of friends, just like all of us have. So I'd be very interested to hear what he has to say. I don't want to crowd him for anything right now, but Joe, if for some reason you're watching, man, like Mike's always open to you. Like I have no problem giving you a fair shake, even though we might disagree. Let's see here. We've got MTX says Joe Kent doesn't know what it was, us and the UK that faked the WMD intel and then brought in Netanyahu to give it legitimacy afterwards. As far as the WMD intel, I've got mixed emotions on the WMD intel because there was viable information for WMDs, and there's a reason they use the term WMDs because they could get away with it. Now, what they pushed publicly was yellow cake, uranium enrichment, same thing that we're hearing over inside of Iran, only this time we've got a hell of a lot more. We've got a hell of a lot more backing behind what's actually on the ground there, and they're openly admitting to it. Over in Iraq, it wasn't necessarily the case. But the WMDs is because it fits chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats, right? So they've got all of those threats that are kind of like balled in there. And there was stockpiles of chemical weapons that had been found. There was a bunch of them that ended up getting buried, a bunch of them that ended up getting shipped off over into Syria, all of those things. So it was all like a very big problem. Fox says it's called a joke. Well, whatever you wrote, Fox. Miguel Berrigan coming in, gifting out 10 Speak the Truth memberships, and Incock Verde gifting out 5. Thank you, guys. Yeah, so that's where it's at. The yellow cake is when you ended up getting it enriched. I believe it's beyond the 90% range, or yeah, I believe it's when it ends up getting enriched beyond that 90% range, and that's where it gets like nasty. Like that's where it's like nasty. So what they do is it starts off. If you guys don't know how uranium enrichment works, it starts off as basically rocks that get dug out of the ground. They take it and they crush it up, essentially, and then it ends up going into these centrifuges. And the centrifuges just spin the crap out of it. And that's why there's so many of them. And what happens is the lighter particles float to the outside, and the heavier particles, which is the U-235 that they need, ends up sinking down to the bottom. Now, obviously, not all of the useless uranium is filtered out, so they have to continue to enrich and enrich and enrich and enrich, and spin it around over and over and over until they gather enough of the U-235 in particular that all the other crap is filtered out. Now, once it's at like 3.5%, you've got about 70% of the work done to enrich it all the way up to weapons grade. Once it's at 60%, you're like 95% of the way there, right? So they've only got to enrich it a little bit further to actually get it up to that weapons grade uranium in order to make nuclear weapons. Either way, having almost 500 kilograms worth of 60% enriched uranium, you can absolutely make dirty bombs out of that. I haven't seen any intelligence that would suggest that that is something that they were attempting to do. Is it possible? Sure. Are we aware of all of their plans? No. If we were aware of all of Iran's plans, I mean, to be quite frank, none of this crap would be going on right now. It's like a centrifuge they spin it in. That's right. There's a buttload of reasons given for Iraq. WMD was only one. And because you don't find them does not mean that they didn't exist. That's also a very valid and true statement. Either way, the killing of these guys over inside of Iran is a very big deal. Like taking out this entire command staff is probably one of the largest developments of this war yet, after the killing of the old supreme leader and a lot of the old leadership. But everybody that was in that tent allegedly was like their top freaking echelon of leadership that they had called together for a meeting. And that tells a lot of different things, that they're, one, having to meet up in a tent in the middle of nowhere. That means that their communication systems are compromised, that they're worried about anything other than an in-person communication, because putting all of these leaders with your skies absolutely controlled like that, putting all of these leaders in one spot could lead to this. But if that's their only option because it's the most secure form of communication, then they're going to go ahead and do that, right? This guy, by the way, this is BBC's interview, and I also want to play this because it gives a different take, which I do not agree with. BBC has lost their crap. As far as I'm concerned, they're like, it kind of makes sense why they're all hanging out in the Iranian embassy.
Crisis group. The slight problem here is that if Israel continues to take out the Iranian leadership, particularly the ones who have been in the past considered moderates, that more hardline, less experienced people will take their place, and it will become harder to actually end this regime rather than easier for the Israelis and for the US. It would make it more complicated inside Iran rather than pave the way for a smooth regime change.
Larijani was seen as a pragmatic figure. He said some very tough things, warlike things, in recent weeks, but over the years he has been seen as a man of flexibility, somebody who sees all the angles. That impression I got of him all those years ago back in Geneva, and he's seen as a man that that maybe you could do business with, but the issue is
National Crisis Group.
Yeah, so he's not a moderate. This guy is absolutely not a moderate at all. Like I said, he was one of the main regime guys that ended up coming in and thrown over the country back in the frickin', whatever frickin' year it was, 77, I think it was, 78, something around there. Ended up going into the country and waging a bunch of the terrorism that ended up making it happen. MTX says the Iranian foreign minister said live on CBS that they had 60% enriched material, though. So naysayers now will have to say he's lying too. Well, correct. Absolutely correct. And here's the other thing. He also confirmed when he made that statement, he confirmed what Steve Witkoff said. When Steve Witkoff said that he had claimed to have 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, which is an additional 20%, or excuse me, an additional 20 kilograms of enriched uranium that the IAEA didn't know about back in June of 2025, right before we bombed him. It was like 3 days before we bombed him. They inspected and they said it was that much. So that would mean that if the Iranian foreign minister is telling the truth, then they continued to enrich uranium this whole time, that Donald Trump and the administration were lying, and that the bombs that we ended up dropping on them were not effective. I want you to wrap your head around that one. So if you're going to believe what the Iranian foreign minister is saying, then you also have to believe that Trump lied when he said we completely and totally decimated their freaking stockpiles and knocked out all of their enrichment capabilities and set them back like a decade. So it's one thing or the other, right? And I'm not here to tell you which one is which. Well, hell with that. I gave you my opinion on this long ago. I don't think that we knocked out all of their enrichment capabilities with those strikes. I don't think we did. I thought that the regime was telling the truth when they said that they had multiple different locations that they had set up. And the IAEA actually documented 2 separate locations that they had not disclosed as part of the NPT that they were supposed to when they went in for the inspections, where they found 85+% enriched uranium, 87, I believe, percent enriched uranium, just south of Tehran. So if they have those 2 enrichment facilities, it makes me wonder how many more enrichment facilities they actually have. So it's one of those things that the truth, quite frankly, I don't know it. It could have been Trump was, making a political statement and saying that they had destroyed everything. Very well could be. I don't have any evidence to suggest otherwise. But what I do know is that the regime is claiming they have 460 kilograms, according to Steve Witkoff. Foreign minister comes out and says he's got 460. We know they've been screaming death to America. We know they sponsor terrorism all over the Middle East. We know Hezbollah was over inside of Venezuela. We know that they've worked their way over into Mexico. Those are my thoughts on it. And I do believe that Hezbollah poses a direct threat to the United States of America. We ended up having them launch an attack last week at the Temple Israel, for crying out loud, over in Michigan. That guy's 2 brothers were Hezbollah fighters. And for those who might be now joining and listening for the very first time, Hezbollah, largest non-state terror organization in the world, which is heavily sponsored by the IRGC, who's also a designated foreign terror organization. They were responsible for the vast majority of casualties over in Iraq and Afghanistan through their weapons supplies and helping to plan attacks and providing intelligence. MTX says, I agree. I think it was bluster to de-escalate. Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Sky God gives out 20 Speak the Truth memberships. He's in the house. So, I think that there's a lot going on here that's a lot more complicated than people like to admit. It's very easy to make one statement and say that I believe this to be the case over inside of Iran. I believe that the regime is doing these things. Because you'd also have to believe that Iran is posing a direct threat to the United States of America. I don't believe they have that capability. I believe they have the capability to sponsor foreign terror organizations and to encourage them to move into the United States, but I don't believe that they have an ICBM that they can launch over and nuke the United States of America. That's what I think. So, take it for what it is. But I also believe that that is a direct threat to the United States of America. I believe that Iran has been encouraging individuals here over the internet from things that I saw. Believe that they were encouraging things over here in the United States of America, such as active shooter situations and many others. And they've been conspiring with Russia. And I don't like Russia at all. I think Russia is the freaking devil, and that they also need taken care of. It's just the way it is. Yep. I'm going to leave it at that one. All right. I'm going to take you guys over into Iran because I want to show you, on top of that happening, I told you what I expect to see. No, we are not the bad guys. There's no way of spinning and saying at no time is Joe Kent going to come out and state that the Iranian regime is not a foreign terror organization, that they haven't killed United States service members, that they're not a threat to our soldiers over in the region. He knows all of those things to be true. He's not going to come out and state that. What he's stating is he doesn't believe in the reasons behind why the United States of America went to war with Iran. All right. He doesn't believe in those reasons. He actually believes that it's Israel that put the United States of America up to it, that they, basically, I don't want to use the term brainwash Trump, but presented him with information that caused Trump to change his mind and go into attacking Iran and launching this. That's what I believe. That's what I believe he was trying to convey in his letter. He is not crazy. He knows for a fact that the Iranian regime is an evil terror organization. But he doesn't agree with the reasons why we went to war. And this is something else too, like when you've dealt with as much war as we have, when you've seen that type of crap, when you're dealing with it, when you're out there constantly dealing with it, and you're losing friends, and he lost a wife, it really brings it home. It really brings it home. I get very pissed off when we have politicians that invoke the names and thoughts of service members in the incorrect manner. I will give him credit. I think the way that he actually brought it up in his letter was a correct manner. I don't think that he did anything wrong in the way he stated in which he did. He just didn't want more U.S. troops to die based on his belief, and he wasn't willing to support that going any further because he's got a conscience and he's got to sleep at night. And as a man, that is the right thing to do. You don't sit back and go, well, I can launch myself politically over something that I believe or that I don't believe. If I say here and I just suck up and I just do things that I don't believe in, like to launch your political career, I would have no respect for him. None. It's not interjecting motions. It's doing what's right. Like when you have a bias, when you're serving in that position that he is, when you're serving in the position that he is, and you have a bias like that, and the intel that we're getting is presenting exactly the opposite, he's also got a way, because he is responsible for the national security of the United States of America. He's also got a way, if he's wrong, he can also get Americans killed. And it's one of those spots that, I mean, quite frankly, he's probably not comfortable with. Tom Bone says, I've said it before and I'll say it again, there are none who want peace more than those who fight the war. Correct. I want peace my dang self. I just have a different approach and thought process to it, which is, if we allow this to continue to go on, we've been trying for the longest time to keep Iran isolated and ignoring a lot of the things that the Iranian regime has done. We've pretended like what the Iranian regime has done isn't horrible, isn't bad. We've ignored it. We've allowed them to take over the Middle East. We've allowed them to take over not just the Strait of Hormuz, but also the Red Sea. That's an issue. Like once you start talking about like international commerce, once you start talking about holding the world hostage, once you start bringing all of those things to light, that's a problem. Here's the thing though. I don't think the president of the United States of America necessarily has the targeting authority to just go after Iran because he feels like they can control the strait. I just don't. It's just, I wouldn't, if that was the whole thing, you know what I mean? If he's got a little bit more to it, sure. And he's surely not going to sell a war like that off to the American people over international commerce. That's something that the EU should get behind, right? That they should go over and they should get behind those bombings. EU is not going to do a dang thing. UK is not going to do anything. France is more worried about Ukraine, and they should. That's on like their doorstep. But the thing is that, in my opinion, from everything that I've seen and the amount of studying and reading up that I've done on everything, my opinion is that Russia has been orchestrating this with Iran and China for the longest time in order to get that global dominance. And I believe that Trump is actually after this to protect the US dollar. That if he didn't go and do this, that the US dollar would collapse. And it's not about oil. We produce more oil than anybody else. It's not about oil. We rip more oil out of the ground than any other nation. It's not about oil. We've got plenty. We export plenty. We refine plenty. It's not about oil. It's about the dollar. And once the petrodollar's done, we're done. Like, that's just a fact. We are too far in debt to do anything else. And I don't think that is a story that the American people want to hear. I have no problem sitting here telling you that. But from the presidential office, I don't think they have the guts to tell the American people that. That's just my thought and opinion. That was a pretty long rant for me to just go over my own thoughts and opinions. So I apologize if you guys didn't enjoy it. But I'm gonna take you guys over into Tehran because I want to show you guys this because it is a development in the war. What's taking place over here on the ground, personally, I think it shows that we ended up having an ambush, not an airstrike. This is being reported as an airstrike by Israel against Iranian special forces over in Tehran. So I want to direct your attention to something. When you look at that video on face value, I don't think it really does it justice just by looking at that video. So I actually took a screenshot of it, and I want to put this up on your screen so that you guys can see it. I noticed something about this video. I found a much clearer one and was able to kind of like zoom in and do all that stuff, but he was filming it from pretty far away. I want you to look at those red arrows on that on that rear window. And what it appears to be is that there's bullet holes there. Now, could those also be fragments from, things being thrown, like frag from the explosion, for example? Yes, it could, but I would expect to see some larger chunks as well, not all uniform size holes that are over inside that window. I just don't see that. I also couldn't help but notice that the tire is flat, that the front driver's side door was open, and the trunk is opened up on that car. If we look at the armored vehicle, the up armored vehicle in the back, it does not look at all like we ended up having the doors blown off of that thing. What it looks like is a very large fire is taking place in that vehicle. The turret is still attached to it. Looks like the doors are still attached to it. It's all in one piece. It does not look like an airstrike took place. That's very important, and that is a very huge development, because right now what we have is Raza Pahlavi coming out calling for action with the people. And I told you guys that his messaging along with Netanyahu's messaging are all kind of in line right now. Same thing with Trump's messaging. They all fell in line like a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, this guy. And yesterday, Raza Pahlavi came out and he actually announced like a transitioning council, basically to hunt down some of these like war criminals and stuff that they got over inside of Iran. Yeah, I'm not wearing green. No, I'm wearing green today. Screw you. I'm wearing green. I am 100% wearing green. You don't get to say I'm not wearing green. I'm wearing green today. You just don't see it. So that's okay. So yeah, that's my belief there. That what we are starting to see is a rebellion rising up. Fox McCloud says, when can we start seeing rebellion across Iran? And are you seeing it or noticing it now? That's perfect time for that question. Yeah. So this is sign number 2. So this is 2 straight days in a row. So yesterday over inside of Iran, there was reports. Let me open this up. I could grab the actual reports, but Iran's main news agency, what's it called? We'll go to my friend Google Maps today. Iran State News Agency actually reported this. So I wanted to get you guys up over here. Down here in this region, actually, from what I can find on it, is down here in the southeast of the country. There was multiple ambushes that got launched, and one was confirmed by Iran state media saying that 5 besieged forces actually ended up getting killed in this ambush. People are saying that it is the I forget what the hell they call them. Basically, it's a freaking insurgency. Like, I don't know how else to say it. It's an insurgency. It is like the local people that are rising up and becoming militias to go and move against this government. Now, that ambush, in my opinion, is huge. There was a video that came out. Let's see if I can grab that video for you. Here we go. Hey, is it this one? Nope, not this one. 1 second. This video came out yesterday, and it shows what is allegedly known as the Immortal Guard, which is the insurgency, right? The Immortal Guard has now obtained weapons, and of course these are just pistols, right? But they're claiming now that they're getting support and they're getting weapons. So this video gets dropped yesterday, and then we get news of multiple different ambushes that ended up coming out, right? That same day that this goes out, the same day that we heard Raza Pahlavi has came out and called for action, and these people are now saying that they're armed and they're openly showing that stuff. And then we have Iranian state media ends up confirming that. And then, to get quite frank into it, we have multiple reports yesterday, And then we get the report today of an airstrike, but to me, it looks like it's an ambush, not an airstrike, that they torched the vehicle afterwards. So all of this as a whole looks to me as if we do have an uprising insurgency that's taking place. Now, they are moving towards direct action, right? So remember how I told you guys, when we hear about a shadow government that ends up coming out, when the announcement of the shadow government hits is when we're going to start hearing about these different attacks, and you start moving into what's called the war movement phase, where they become overt about what they're doing. This is still guerrilla tactics. It's not a full overt freaking movement. And so we're kind of like fluctuating back and forth between these. It's not a full blown freaking uprising yet. All right. Yeah. I believe I actually have the video of Pahlavi coming out calling for that. Let me see if I can find it. If I don't, I will grab it real quick so you guys can hear it, because he did come out and he called for it. Bibi's dead. Bombing, Tehran, Hamna, F-15 wounded. I will find it. Nope. One sec. It'll correct me. So, yep, here it is. I think this is the one. Yep, I think this is it.
همیهنان عزیزم، برای آنکه ایران با سقوط جمهوری اسلامی دچار گسست در اداره کشور نشود، در ماه‌های گذشته دو کار مهم به طور همزمان در دست انجام بوده است. نخست، تدوین یک برنامه روشن برای اداره کشور در چارچوب پروژه شکوفایی ایران.
So, he just announced they have been working on an Iranian transition government. That's what he just said. He said, over the last several months, we've been working on the Iranian transition government. That's why I bring up and I tell you that there is a shadow government. And once that shadow government comes out, that's when you're going to start seeing these attacks. And just like I told you, they came out. Where does that come from? That comes from manuals for guerrilla warfare, baby.
دوم، شناسایی و برگزیدن زنان و مردان شایسته برای حضور در سامانه گذار و اجرای این برنامه. در این فرایند هم‌میهنان بسیاری با تجارب ارزشمند و تخصص مورد نیاز کشورمان آمادگی خود را برای مشارکت در بازسازی کشور و خدمت به میهن اعلام کردند. این روند در چارچوب کمیته بررسی و گزینش اعضای سامانه گذار انجام شده که مدیریت آن بر عهده دکتر سعید قاسمی نژاد است. در این چارچوب طی ماه‌های اخیر افراد توانمند در داخل و خارج از کشور برای سرپرستی بخش‌های گوناگون سامانه گذار شناسایی و بررسی شده‌اند. سامانه گذار با هدایت من آماده خواهد بود تا به محض سقوط جمهوری اسلامی زمام اداره کشور را در دست گیرد و در کوتاه‌ترین زمان نظم، امنیت.
There you have it. They are ready and they are prepared to take over as soon as the regime falls. Tom Bone says, I welcome your thoughts and opinions because listening to other people's thoughts and opinions on things can help open your eyes to new perspectives, whether you agree with them or not. Right. And I don't think I've had a take this entire time that every single member of this channel absolutely agrees with. And that's a good thing. You know, I told you guys years ago, and Tom, you've been around for a long time, man, years ago, that my goal in this channel is to create critical thinkers. I want you guys to not listen to what the mainstream media tells you, not to listen to people like Tucker and Candace. If you want to listen to them, fine, but take that information, process it, and then validate it, and then fact check it. Look at what's actually happening on the ground and see if that matches up with what they're telling you. There is no excuse in today's day and age for us not to have that ability to do so. Like you guys should easily be able to do that right now. So don't think about that. Fox McCloud says, do you think part of the tactic is for the rebel groups to draw out IRGC for targeting? Yes, I do. I 100% do, but not yet. Not yet. Right now, what their job to do is to harass and annoy. Because basically what you're seeing right now with this announcement of a transitional government, on top of the ambushes, on top of the leadership being schwacked, like we saw today, right? Their goal now is going to be to harass and destroy key pieces of equipment through guerrilla warfare, like ambushes, taking out key infrastructure, denying movement of them in certain areas, ripping off supplies, destroying their supply chain, things like that. What that does is it is basically a recruiting tool, if you will, for the people. Right? The people are going to end up seeing that. It's going to cause the government to devote more forces as far as security goes. And that within itself will begin to draw out some of those besieged forces and the IRGC forces. It'll begin to draw them out. But when, and I would bet that this is what it is, when either they fully rise up and they move into that war movement phase, when they fully rise up and they start moving, that's what's going to draw them out. When they physically start taking, holding, and dominating terrain, that's what's going to draw out your besieged and IRGC to where they can actually be effectively targeted. Large movements, large convoys, it's going to force them to come out from their tunnels. It's going to force them to come out from underneath their overpasses, all of that stuff. And it's going to make the targeting of them 10 times easier. So that's my opinion. Effect says, to understand that Israel does not control America, please watch the debate clip on the Aaron Milan show of Shobas Kestenbaum. I haven't seen that one yet. I need to watch it. I texted her the other day about something. I need to check back on that. Bibi gave them 2 middle fingers on the right hand. Yeah, I mean, that's he gave them 2 middle fingers on the right hand. Yeah, that he did, man. Bibi's just all about flicking his middle fingers wherever he can do it, right? But look, at the end of the day, you've got those announcements of that shadow government. You've got ambushes that are taking place, and they are recognized by the Iranian state TV. This one hasn't been yet, but it likely may or may not be. But it certainly appears that way. And we have information from yesterday. Now, if this continues on for a day, 2 days, 3 days, that's when we're going to start seeing these guys getting drawn out. You know what I mean? That's when we're going to start seeing them getting drawn out. All right. So U.S. Releasing new airstrike videos. Now, something that was also very telling to me about these airstrike videos that we see coming out. One, these drones certainly appear to be loitering over position for a much longer period of time, slower movement. So maybe they're just really high up. Those are not people on the ground that are pinning those targets. Those are the drones that are pinning the targets. But I want you to observe something about these airstrikes. These are all small diameter bombs that are smashing into these trucks. You guys see that? Earlier on in the war, these types of vehicles were getting hit by much larger bombs. Now they're getting hit by smaller diameter bombs. So what can we assess and what can we take from that? Well, aircraft can only carry so much weight and they only have so much room on their wings. All right. They can only carry so much of a load. So if they are carrying smaller bombs, that means they're going to have more of them available to be able to launch and to be able to impact targets. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. What's that tell me? It says that the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines that are flying over top of Iran right now are using much smaller loads. So they've taken out all of their bigger targets they would have to take out. So, yeah. Oh, man, look at, oh, holy crap, man. Coach XS, I see you. I see you, buddy. I hear you. I hear you. 705 says, my dad used to watch the evening news, but our news is now the enemy. Thanks for being my morning and evening truth. You're welcome, brother. Appreciate that. It's very kind words. So, yeah, I think we've got good domination of all of that and that they're in hiding. Now, Iran released this video, or I'm sorry, not Iran. Hezbollah released this video just a couple days ago. I've been trying to tell people that Iran's got ballistic missiles, anti-ship ballistic missiles, and all of that stuff for the longest time. People tell me I'm crazy, and I'm like, nope, that's literally what they're assessed to have. And I've seen way too many videos like this of Hezbollah over inside of Lebanon that has these things. So this is what I see. This is what I pay attention to. I pay attention to like the physical assets that they have and what they're capable of delivering. This morning, after those two commanders got taken out, Iran ended up launching a huge strike on Israel and started hammering it down. Lots of freaking ballistic missiles ended up getting sent their way, probably rockets from Lebanon as well. But this is Hezbollah shooting those rockets. You guys can see the date there, 03:15. So that came out 2 days ago that they ended up doing this. Interesting enough, you guys can see them using their freaking little sighting device there to hope it's set up at the right angles and everything. Colt says, why do most pro-Ukrainian content creators also have an Orange Man bad complex that feeds the anti-Israel, anti-Iran conflict narrative? What type of psyops are at play here in America? Those psyops that you're talking about with the Israeli content creators, if you will, went extremely liberal a couple years ago, 23 going into 24. Yeah. I want to say it was 23 going into 24 is when we saw that huge change. And it had to do with the U.S. border bill. And it had to do with the support for Ukraine being tied up in the U.S. border bill. And what ended up happening, even though the U.S. border bill gave a lot more funding towards federal judges, that funding for federal judges was to get them into the United States. That was kind of like their focus in the way that I read and understood the bill. They had a lot of federal judges that were doing that. And it would have created a superhighway for people to move into America, all based on freaking asylum claims and things of that nature. And they wanted more judges in order to process those claims. Trump looked at that and he said, that's a bad deal for America. Well, the Democrats put the Israeli funding for it, and they put the funding for Ukraine underneath that as well. So when Trump called the Republicans in Congress and said, do not pass that bill, you will not have my support if you vote for that bill because it is going to make America unsafe, do not pass that bill. That's why. And so the RT narrative that ended up getting spun out of that, the Russian disinformation campaign that takes place online, along with the Iranians and the Chinese, ended up coming out and screaming that Trump hates Ukraine, Trump hates Israel, he doesn't want to support either of these two wars, and that's where that came from. And ever since then, they've been riding hard. They weren't smart enough to go back and look and say, well, Joe Biden had been holding up funding for Ukraine for a long time prior to that, and they decided to attach to that border bill, costing the lives of thousands of Ukrainians every single day back then. So it was appalling to me when it came out in that manner. But that's the narrative that got spun, and that's how those guys started taking it, and they just lived on with that narrative forever. And also just to get Ukrainians killed, by the way. Like what they did back then also got Americans killed over inside of Gaza. It kind of pissed me off. We had American hostages that were being held, and the one that I will always refer to as Hersh Goldberg. He was being held down inside of Rafah, and Israel had been stacked up outside of Rafah. I think this was like March of 24. Like they were ready to go into Rafah. It was either March or April of 24. They were stacked and ready to go into Rafah. And Kamala Harris held them up. And that's where her famous speech came out and said, I've studied the maps. There's nowhere for those people to go. And she gave that whole speech, that whole spiel. That was there. And the problem is that Hersh was down in there. And we know he was down in there because in August, when Israel started to clear through Rafah, that's when they came across and found his body down in one of the tunnels. And he'd only been dead for like a couple days. And his body was shielding that of other hostages as well, shot in the tunnels. So I have forever hatred against the people that did that type of stuff, not to mention the freaking humanitarian aid port that ended up getting other American killed. I mean, it's just Quandarius Stanley, Sergeant Quandarius Stanley. He got hurt building that stupid pier that was only open for like a couple days to go into Gaza when Haifa is like right up the freaking shoreline from it, and they could have shipped everything into Haifa and then by ground in there. But for some reason, they wanted a big victory. So picture who made all the money building that port. It cost the United States government millions in order to build that freaking thing. And it was a huge political stunt as far as I'm concerned. Fox says, I'm a little concerned about the pacing. I know that I'm a regular American. Public is very fickle when it comes to conflict. What do I think about the pacing of this war? I think the war is moving along just fine. I think that they're hammering it exceptionally hard, though. And what I'm concerned with, now that we're in this deep, what I am concerned with about the pacing is that it's not going to be done complete, and that it is going to cause more instability in the Middle East if it's not done correct. So we're already past the point of no return in in my opinion, we're beyond the event horizon here, to where if we just stop today and we back out, it might take them a year or 2 years to rebuild, but rebuild they will, and then they're going to come hard for America. Hard. And it doesn't matter if Donald Trump or the most pro-Iranian president, it doesn't matter if Obama comes back into office for a third term and sends another airplane full of cash over there. Like, they're going to go hard against America, and we will see attacks now. If you didn't think it was going to happen before, absolutely you can count on them now. So that's my thought on that, Pat. Seems like Russian bots are trying to push U.S. dropping NATO allegiance since no EU support on the Strait. Well, there's going to be, I do believe you're going to see some EU support on the Strait. But to be quite frank, the entire EU is really against this war anyways. Paul Allen, what's up, brother? Becoming a true supporter. Thank you, sir. It's one of them things, man. It's one of them things that they also have extremely liberal governments over there. Those extremely liberal governments, I already played that BBC clip for you of that old, now dead regime official that was just killed a few hours ago. And they're coming out with pro-regime content. We had several members, I want to say it was of the UK Parliament, that ended up going to the Iranian embassy on February 12th, along with guys from CNN, right? We ended up talking about that ended up getting confirmed. So it's just troubling. What is real coming in, gifting out 10. Thank you, sir. All right, let's so let's talk about it. Massive freaking attacks ended up taking place following those deaths that ended up getting announced. Get this video up for you. These are this is clearly a cluster bomb. You guys remember how I talked to you about the cluster munitions, that they're only about 3 kilograms worth of explosives. Dang thing weighs 20 kilos though. You know, this thing weighs like almost 50 pounds or 50 pounds, something around there. That's a huge freaking blast. There's a huge blast, radius for that little bomb. But the reason it looks like that is because it weighs 20 freaking kilos. So that thing detonated after it freaking buried itself in the ground and then blew outwards. That's why you have huge chunks of bricks that are out. That's that explosive wave working its way out and throwing those freaking bricks at the ground. So 20 kilogram steel bomb impacts the ground, then explodes. So the good thing about it in cases like this is that those bombs really aren't that effective. You would technically, if I want to cause damage to the surrounding area, I would want that bomb to have like a proximity fuse on it, and I would want it to detonate above surface level so it goes outward, causing more damage and everything else. This one, these are burying themselves into the ground, causing that blast, and it contains it, right? So it buries itself in the ground, detonates, and then it's throwing crap out there. And the good news about that is it's burying itself and it's kind of containing the blast a little bit, which I guess is a good thing when it goes out. Church of the Holy Sepulchre also has a bit of an issue. Yesterday, Church of the Holy Sepulchre compound had fallout from Iranian ballistic missiles go crashing down into it. For those of you guys that don't know, that is where Jesus' tomb's at. I believe the rooftop this is on, I've actually walked through that particular church within itself. And here's the problem. This building right here, this church that's sitting on, is one of the oldest churches in the world. Oldest Christian churches in the world are sitting like right there. If they end up bombing the tomb, and this is my concern, those bombs are so dang heavy. Those bombs are so dang heavy, I think they would be able to break through those rooftops and would probably break through that tomb itself. And if they get lucky enough that they get one of those shots in there, I would be freaking pissed. Absolutely pissed that it ends up like going down and happening that way. Somebody said that shrapnel hit the Dome of the Rock. I know that this is the Western Wall. That's the entrance to go down to the Western Wall. They have the male side and female side over here. And then Dome of the Rock sits like right over here, like kind of off the screen a little bit. I heard that, but I didn't see any good pictures of it. But this, I believe, is not... I do not believe that this is bomb damage. I believe that this is just parts of the ballistic missiles that got intercepted that ended up falling down. NCOG says we need a few more things to go on in the world so you don't get bored. How much more crap, man? You know how hard it is to keep up especially with all of the mis and disinformation that's out there right now, how hard it is to keep up with like all of the things that are going on in the world today. I mean, I haven't even had time to research and look how far the Israeli ground troops have advanced inside southern Lebanon. Like, I've got so much stuff going on. I know that they are advancing. I know that they came out and said that they're going to clear Hezbollah out south of Litani, as per Resolution 1701. Other than that, I haven't had enough time to like catch up on these guys and see where they're at and where they're going. So if you're in the IDF and you're watching this and you want to send me some information on it that's open source, there's my X count down there. What is real? Says what ended up coming out of the school hit in Iran, former 13 Fox conservative, but not liking the AI and misinformation being spread. Thanks. What's came out of that so far? Well, nothing. They're still, as far as I know, investigating it. I did reach out, by the way, to Aussie Man Reviews, and he reached out back to me. I asked him if he wanted to do a joint stream or a joint video on this matter about all of the misinformation about it. He said that he ended up having surgery, foot injury type thing that he's dealing with, if I remember right. And so we're going to continue to talk, and we're going to continue to pass information to get more of that coming out for you guys. Gus 7788 become a true supporter, appreciate you. But so far nothing. And my information that's got, I don't even know how many, I don't even think it's got a community note yet. If I put it up, the main video that I did, yeah, let's see here. This one's got, this is my X account. This one's got 1 million views on it. No community note. This one from March 9th says it's clear it's not a tomahawk. 7.6 million views. No community note. 2.3 million views. No community note. So, I mean, we're talking about 10 million views worth of content up there, and not a single one's got a community note yet, because what I said is absolutely valid and it can't be disproven until they come out with an official investigation that comes out on it. But right now, my opinion still stands. Fox McCloud says, any thoughts on Cuba? Yeah, played a video yesterday of Trump on Cuba. Trump actually came out with a statement on Cuba, and he is stating that he's not going to tell everybody what's going to happen. He's not going to end up breaking it down on what's going to end up happening. But I don't think we're going to have a full-blown war with Cuba at all. I think we're likely going to handle that one because it's a little bit smaller and closer to home. I think we're going to handle that one with how do you want to say, unconventional means, and we'll see what ends up happening there. And I think, highly doubt we're going to push for a regime change over in Cuba, but what we'll probably end up seeing is a government that comes out a little bit more supportive of the United States of America. As of right now, that's my thoughts on it. U.S. Embassy in Baghdad has been under attack for the last 48 plus hours of Shahed drones. Talked to you guys about it last night. I told you that there was wave after wave that was like kind of like coming in there. And I do believe that to be accurate information. I do know that they have had not amazing effects, but decent effects when it goes down to targeting the embassy. And it most certainly looks like they're now flying FPV fiber optics over the embassy. And I'll show you guys that in a minute. Saw the question on whether or not I talked about the new supreme leader being gay. No, I did not talk about the new. This is that fiber optic drone, by the way, reconning U.S. Embassy over in Baghdad. Video just came out, got dropped by, I want to say it was Kataib Hezbollah just a little bit ago. No, I did not. I didn't, because as far as I'm concerned, it is more or less a rumor. Even Trump said that wasn't confirmed, but that's what the intel was coming out stating, is that the guy is gay, but he's not really commenting on it either. So if Trump's not going to comment on it and be like, oh yeah, that dude's gay as AIDS, I'm not going to come out and make that comment either. Why? Because as far as I'm concerned, it's completely and totally irrelevant, because the fact is that they did end up voting him in. And the fact is that he is wounded and he is in a hospital. And we just ended up taking out their other leaders. Those are solid facts that I like to stick with when it comes down to everything, and talk to you guys about. Yeah. Now, this, in my opinion, right here, what we have up on the screen, is a problem. This right here, this is the issue. The issue is that they are now having more advanced drone systems that are going in, reconning U.S. Embassy compound, and that it's been under attack by one-way suicide attack drones. And several of them have smashed in or near the compound. One direct hit that I'm aware of that ended up taking out a radar station this weekend. Another one that ended up going outside of it. And all of this started with an uprising of the Shiite militias, 2 weeks ago, when they started attacking like the U.S. embassies and rioting and stuff like that and shooting at them. Now it would appear that they just kind of have ability to fly FPV drones around in fiber optics. Now, who do you think supplied them with all of that stuff, right? And gave them those things. Obviously, they can buy that type of crap. They can put it together. They can build it. In my opinion, likely what you're seeing is Russian equipment. Yeah, Russian equipment. I see Russian fiber tail drones. I see, right, Russian equipment that was given to the IRGC that got forwarded to their proxy forces in the PMF over inside of Iraq. And I would believe that's kind of what's happening here. Now, this is probably my favorite video of all time. And we're going to have a quick discussion on this because I told you guys, this comes out of Tehran. This is a civilian. And he pulls up to a besieged checkpoint. And he ends up cranking up his radio with the sound of a drone. But I want you to notice something about it. And I want you to notice how the people react to it. I mean, that's one way to get through a checkpoint, right? Just play the sound of some quadcopters right in. That was not the sound of a Lucas or knockoff Shaheeds. That was the sound of a quadcopter, right? Of a FPV drone. And last week, I want to say it was Thursday or Friday, I played videos for you guys. And in those videos, I said, I do not believe these to be Shahed drones. I do not believe these to be anything. I believe them to be not one-way drones, but two-way that are going over, dropping munitions, and then flying back to wherever they came from. Guys, remember how I told you that? The reaction from these guys, this is confirmation. This is confirmation of that. The reaction of these guys was not, oh my God, what is that noise? What's happening here? That's a reaction of people that have been hit by these things. So they're either one-way drones, little quadcopters that are being flown by people on the ground that are going over and smashing them. This video right here is a much bigger deal than I think most people realize. This video is evidence that we have people on the ground that are operating quadcopter drones that are either suicide freaking drones that are going in and blasting these dudes, being used as a weapon, or ones that are being piloted, dropping stuff on them, and then coming back to wherever they were and refitting. And the besieged forces are running from them. So what do you guys think that means? That means there's more people on the ground with better support than we realize. This guy that's inside the car that turned those on knows that. Now, what are the odds that this random besieged checkpoint would be scared as crap of these frickin' drones coming by if they weren't being used on a much larger scale? Because I want you to think their communications have been messed up to the point where their leadership just got schwacked in a tent because they had to meet up in the middle of nowhere because their communications are compromised. They react in this way. Look, you see this guy? Like immediately held his hand up to his ear. Immediately. Watch him. Doesn't take him too long to figure it out. 2 seconds. Took him 2 seconds to realize what the hell that was. That triggered a freaking nervous response in him within 2 seconds. They are expecting that. What's funny is people are just passing this around as if it's a joke on the internet, and nobody's really thinking deeper about it and why those forces would be scared. The reason they're scared is exactly what I told you. They have been targeted by these things in the past. And so when you see things like this, I want you to think bigger picture of what this actually means. This within itself also backs up what I told you guys earlier in the day or early in this stream about an insurgency that's over there, that resistance movement that's about to rise up and take over the government, that they are actually being targeted directly by people on the ground. So now I want you to think, and we go back to that original video that I ended up playing for you guys, of that ambush that took place over inside of Tehran against the quote-unquote special forces guys. What are the odds that that vehicle got hit with a FPV and then they got ambushed and got lit up with freaking AKs or pistols, whatever it is that they've been given? It's a much bigger deal than I think people realize. Marvin Herrera, how did the Department of War not see any of this coming, though? They did. And that's why I said Trump shouldn't be speaking off the cuff. Like when it comes to all things war. He just shouldn't. I had a discussion with Nate about this the other day. Right? And he was talking with the VP, and he said that they have had numerous discussions this year and last about the freaking Strait of Hormuz. And it's obvious that if for some reason something went down with Iran, they would try to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Like that's just a thing. Like it to say that we were not ready for them to shut down the strait is lunacy in my opinion. Like it's just not realistic. I think we had more than enough information to know that they were going to be doing that. Now, the extent at which they were going to target the other Middle Eastern countries, totally different. Totally different. I mean, you can't predict what Iran's going to do. They're radical Islamic terror organization. You cannot predict what the IRGC is going to do. If they were to survive, especially if they were to survive, they definitely need the support of the UAE for money laundering purposes. I wouldn't have expected them to hit the UAE, for crying out loud, because of the monetary value the UAE brings. Except for the fact that it seems like the regime's over. And that's one of those things I warned you guys about, that when the regime's done, the gloves are coming off. Hold on, wait for it. You can literally see the entire roof right here that got detached from the building, lit on fire, and is now falling down. Holy freaking cow. You guys see that? That's the freaking roof of that building. That's a big bomb striking over inside of Tehran. So yeah, hell with it. People are, I can't even do it. People are saying that this is basically what Tehran looks right now. They're comparing it to Gaza. Kind of stupid and silly to me. People bringing it up. But at the end of the day, what do you think is going to happen when we're flying 6,000 sorties? You know, it's now we've executed over 6,000 targets inside of Iran. Over 6,000 targets have been executed inside of Iran as of yesterday morning. So we're probably now up over 62 to 6,500. I mean, we're just smashing them. Just smashing them. We're on what, day 14? So we're averaging a little less than 500 targets a day. That's a lot of freaking sorties. That's a lot of sorties. So, I mean, Iran's going to have a lot of cleaning up to do. United States is going to have a huge financial responsibility to come after them and take care of them in that manner as well. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I love it. I love being able to sit here and break these things down for you. I thoroughly enjoy doing these things. I thoroughly enjoy giving you guys the assessments that I'm able to give you. I hope you guys enjoy them as well. If you haven't yet, make sure you become a true supporter. Like, subscribe, follow the channel, do all those things. Go follow me on X. It's down the bottom corner of your screen. I put out up-to-date information on there all day long. I'll see you guys next time.
Your aircraft carriers after we've already won. So, you know, those things are very disappointing. And you have to remember, we have 45,000 troops in Japan. We have 45,000 troops in South Korea. We have 45,000, 50,000 troops in Germany. We defend all these countries. And then, do you have any minesweepers? And they say, well, would it be possible for